It's Saturday morning. It's 9 o'clock. Oh boy, yes! It's time for the Monster Magic Saturday Show. Let's do this.
Wake up, it's a beautiful morning. Feel the sun shining for your eyes.
Woohoo! Good morning, people. Before I start, I must apologise. I have noticed that the boat is moving quite a lot. It is rocking. It was quite something last night, I have to say. So I apologise if you feel a bit queasy after a while, or there is some noise. There's very little I can do about it. It feels a little bit like I'm on the Bay of Biscay at the moment, but nothing stands in the way of the Monster Magic review show. And it is quite a penguin heavy magic show today, just because I had a massive delivery, and I think pretty much all of it is wonderful. But let's start with Gasp by Erik Tait. Erik Tait is an employee of Penguin, and he is a very, very good technical card guy and also a very funny guy. And this is his take on the magnetized cards plot. If you don't know the magnetized cards plot, the idea is that you spread some cards out on the table or on the palm of your hand. You can then either lift them up or turn your hand over, and you have a nice fan spread of cards stuck to the palm of your hand. It's been around as a plot since the early 1800s with various methods, some of which sound quite painful. Really kind of modernized in 1937 when Glenn Gravett published Berlin Hull's idea in Encyclopedia of Card Tricks, which I must admit, I'm sure I probably read when I was in my late teens and completely ignored until I saw Michael Close's Devious Volume 1 DVD, where he does a brilliant version of using Gary Plant's gimmick, which is very similar to the one in Encyclopedia of Card Tricks. Brilliantly made gimmick, completely invisible. I had no idea how the trick was done when I saw Michael Close perform it, and I thought it was amazing. And I've been trying to get hold of Gary Plant's gimmick for a long, long time. And eventually I found one just for £1 in the Magic Circle library. But I mentioned the Michael Close routine because it is hilarious, and it's done in a slightly different handling than Erik's. So if you want to, to learn a little bit more about it, if you do buy Gasp and you're looking for ideas, that isn't a bad one to check out. Erik's gimmick is very much based on the Gary Plant version or Berlin Hull's version, I suppose. I can't really show you the gimmick as such, apart from the fact it is on a joker, which is quite handy if you're using your deck of cards and you don't want the same card to come up. You can just remove the jokers, and then that way you won't have any duplicates in the deck. And it's on a rider back card, a red rider back card is what you get. Other than that, Erik has really sort of taken the traditional method, I suppose, or the most common method for it, and I thought originally over-engineered it, but in fact that isn't the case. I think he's made it a lot easier to use, certainly, and added the idea that you can now pick the cards up from the table. Gary Plant's and the Berlin Hull version, should I say, was really sort of done with the cards already sort of in your palm of your hand face up. It's quite nice to be able to lift them up off the table. The one downside is that the gimmick isn't quite as invisible as the Berlin Hull version, but Erik runs through exactly how to keep that covered. And to be honest, there are usually so many cards being spread out on the table that they would really have to burn that one card. So it's really not anything to worry about. And on the tutorial, once Erik has explained exactly how you utilize the gimmick, he runs through his two routines. There's a close-up routine and there's also a parlor version. Erik says he does the parlor version more often, but he's turned the close-up one into a finder selection routine, which is a really nice, really sort of motivates the trick as well. And it's a great, surprising way of revealing a card. It does use a basic card sleight, but Erik teaches all of that, and you probably know your own method if you've got one. Anyway, it's a really nice close-up routine. The reason it's called Gasp is because Erik sort of sucks in and pretends he's sort of sucking the cards up through his body almost. So he gives it a little bit when he's lifting the cards up, which does add to the amusement. The parlour show routine is great as well. It's a nice few minutes of a sort of visual card stunt that you don't need to bring a spectator on stage or anything like that. So it's a nice little interlude if you want to sort of pace your parlour show properly. Skill wise, there's really not much to it. It's how you lay out the cards, which can be pretty random and free, and then just a little bit of a knack to engage the gimmick. The gimmick, by the way, is really strong. It'll last you a long time, provided you don't do anything stupid with it. I really like it as an effect. Michael Close had me in stitches and baffled as well. It's just quirky. You can have so much fun presenting it. How you present it is entirely up to you, whether it's some skill or whether you've got some superhuman power. You can really run with any idea you come up with, and it's just really surprising for your audience. It's not something they expect, and it looks absolutely impossible, and most of everything can be examined afterwards. You only need to carry the gimmick around, which is basically one card, and then you can just do it whenever it takes your fancy. I think it's great just to have a trick with cards that isn't really a card trick. That is Gasp by Erik Tait, $24.99. And next up, we've got The Magic 8 Ball by Roddy, McGhie. This is another bonkers card revelation by Roddy. Only he can come up with this stuff. In this one, you have a card selected, signed and lost in the deck, very much in a traditional manner. However, you then bring out a card that has an 8 ball printed on it. You ask your participant to merely think of their selection, and in the middle of the 8 ball appears their chosen card. You can then hand them the 8 ball card, and as they turn it over, it is indeed their signed card. It is quite simply a nutty way of revealing someone's chosen selection and also giving them a souvenir that is an impossible object. Let me show you what you get. You get a full deck of cards, because these are basically giveaways, so you'll add these to your ordinary deck. They are all the 4 of spades, so if you are repeating this for friends and family, it is always going to be the same value. I hope that's not too much of a sticking point. Who knows, they might bring out other revelations later if this proves particularly popular, which I think honestly it should. You also get the gimmick 8 ball card, which I'll come to later, and you get a double backer. This helps with the routine. It is a red rider back double backer, as you can see, but if you can use any double backer you like, the back of the cards doesn't matter at all. As long as the indices match roughly the 4 of spades that you're given, you can use any deck that you like, provided you've got a double backer. If you're using some sort of speciality deck and there isn't a double backer, I watched a great Stephen Tucker lecture back in the early 90s, and he suggested just getting one of the cards that you're not going to use from that deck, get some Pritt stick, put it on the face, and then get another one and slap them together, and that gives you a double backer. The double backer isn't touched or handled at all by your participants, so it's nothing to worry about, and that way you can just fit it in to any deck that you like. The 8 ball gimmick is really simple. This is it's just so clever, and yet it works so well, and it's virtually indestructible. There's nothing really to break. There's nothing electronic in it at all, and I'll see if I can make the vanity. This is just fun, just making the card slowly appear like that. And there you have it, their selection in the 8 ball. The reset is just really quick. It's almost instant, in fact. The tutorial doesn't feature Roddy. It is, in fact, by Nick Lecapo, who is fast becoming my favourite tutorialist, if that's a word. And he runs through everything with super clarity. But what I really like about Nick's tutorial is he clearly tries these tricks out a lot, and he just adds these little pearls of wisdom and these great tips throughout. Well worth watching. And actually at the end of this tutorial he explains just how to make sure that the moment of magic, the moment that the revelation appears in the middle of that 8 ball, just to make sure everyone's focused on it, hold it nice and still, make sure everyone's looking where it's going to appear, because as he points out, they don't know what's going to happen, so you have to make sure that they don't miss it, because that would be a shame, because visually I think it is really impressive, despite how easy and simple it is. Skill wise, there's very little to it. You just need to know those two basic skills of controlling a card and forcing a card. Again, Nick runs through how to do that in an easy and deceptive way. You don't need to do anything particularly special or technical. You just have to make sure that they don't see the back of their selection. Nick teaches the revelation in 2 different ways. You can either do it visually, which I particularly like, or you can put it face down in their hand. When they next turn it over, their card is on the 8 ball. It's entirely up to you. There is good motivation for switching the 8 ball for their signed selection, and it just flies by, and they then end up with this lovely impossible souvenir. There's a small bit of setup before you go, but you've only got to do it to 1 card. If you wish, you could do all of the cards at the same time if you really want. It just depends on how many times you're going to be doing it that night. And I think this is one of those tricks that people are going to remember, they're going to talk about, and they're going to drag you over to show their friends. And of course they do have that lovely impossible object to remind them of what they've just seen. It is one of the most bizarre card revelations I've ever come across. It almost doesn't feel like a card trick, and for it to be so easy is almost criminal. That is the Magic 8 Ball by Roddy McGhie, 31.99. I actually think Roddy might have some of these himself, so perhaps you can contact him on Facebook if you want to support Roddy directly. Next up, it is Chroma Colour Changing Knives by TCC. I do understand that carrying knives these days is going out of fashion. Well, I mean, with my demographic, I imagine with some other demographics, it's very much in fashion. But the colour changing knives is a true classic of magic, and I think it is really visual. It's not difficult to do. It's not a card trick, and it's really versatile, and you can do as many phases and play with it as much as you like. And I think once the routine starts, people forget that they're knives, and these knives are actually easily recognizable objects, and they are genuine, and they can be examined at the end if the routine allows it. What TCC have done is what they always do, which is create some beautiful props. You get these 5 knives. Some are gimmicked, some are standard, some are black on both sides. Some, you get the idea. I'm not going to run through the entire routine for you, but you get various ones. So this one's obviously multicolored. This one's half and half, which allows you to do a nice slow color change, which is quite beautiful. And they are just a lovely weight, lovely shape. You can do the moves so easily with these. They are genuine knives. They do open up and so on, but there's no reason to do that. They're just beautiful. The tutorial is about half an hour long, and it covers all of the basics to get you started. There is the traditional paddle move and a couple of variations. It's taught nicely over the shoulder, really well explained. If you are learning the paddle move, it's one of those things that you got to watch yourself in the mirror or film yourself. If you watch yourself do it directly, it just doesn't fool you. I don't know why that is, but it does fool other people despite being so simple. He also teaches some nice color changes as well and some variations of that. So you end up with sort of 5 or 6 different moves that you can incorporate into the routines. It's not a masterclass by any stretch of the imagination. And if you look at people like Ascanio, they've got whole books on it. There are whole DVDs on it. How you present them, how you introduce the knives, again, is entirely up to you. These remind me very much of my granddad's old fruit knife. So might talk about that. It might be a family heirloom, however you wish. But I just wouldn't be scared about having these knives. They're small enough to be harmless and non-threatening, and they are just lovely, lovely props. There are 2 routines taught. They're quite basic, but they include all of the phases that you'd expect from the classic color changing knives. You can put one of the knives in your pocket and have it change places with the one still in your hand. Lots of other transpositions can be done. You've also got a nice visual color changes of the knives, some nice bits involving your participant and taking the knives out of your participant's hands to involve them. The important thing about the routines is they do also show the motivation for going to your pocket, which enables you to switch in and out of the gimmick. Second routine is a little more involved and includes the stripy knife as well. It's a great set. The tutorial covers all of the basics. I think once you've got these in your hands, you're going to fall in love with them, and you're probably going to research extra routines to do with them. I think the color changing knives are just really strong and really visual. That is the Chroma color changing knives by TCC, $50.99. Next up, we've got Destiny Deal by Craig Petty. Yes, the Petster is back.
And I just can't get enough. I just can't get enough.
The rants and tantrums that we all love, and I just can't seem to get enough of Craig. This was billed as one of the greatest any card at any numbers ever, and well, quite simply it isn't, but I think it's all the better for it. Here's what happens. You show your participants that you have a instruction card that says how to do an amazing card trick, and by running through each of the steps on the card, you have a card named, chosen, put back in the deck. The deck is then shuffled. Your participant then names any number that they like. They freely deal down to that number. They hand you the card at that number. You show that all of the other cards are completely different, and then you show that the card that they stopped on is indeed their selection. What a great card trick, which is exactly what it is. For me, any card at any number is a pure mentalism trick. It's the sort of thing that you'd have the deck on the table and you'd have some scientific laboratory test conditions, and then they would name a card and the card would be at that number. This isn't this. This is a fun romp of a card trick where it's basically a real find a selection. Let me show you what you get, because this is so simple gimmick, and the gimmick is basically the instruction card. It helps you do the trick. It gives the trick a really good hook. It's not the first trick to use an instruction card by any stretch of the imagination, but that is a really fun way of introducing it. It reminds me a little bit of the Vanishing Bandana, which had a recorded tutorial, and with this you've got no magician in trouble necessarily, but it does add that you're not really touching the deck and you're not really doing anything because you're simply reading the instructions. And perhaps they might possibly believe, if your acting's good enough, that you haven't done the trick before and you are genuinely learning it for the first time. So not only is a hook, I think it does add a little bit of psychological amazement to the trick as well, but it is also cunningly gimmicked. So although this could be handed out, it can be held, it can be inspected, it does a fair bit of the magic for you. Not all of it. This trick isn't entirely self-working. It's still very, very easy. You do have to learn how to control a card. Obviously, Craig teaches a couple of ways of doing that. You can keep it as simple as you like, because afterwards you're going to ask them to shuffle anyway. And then this card does all of the work for you. It's pretty smart, and it would be versatile. If it wasn't printed with this, if you could in some way customize this, it would be really, really versatile. But it should open up some ideas for you if you want to go off in your own direction. Craig teaches a couple of handlings on the tutorial, one for if you're seated at a table and one for if you're walk around. Personally, I would just do the walk around version. At the table version, the moment of the move, shall we call it, happens a little bit later in the routine, fractionally later, but I don't think it's such the best beat to do it on. I think just do the walk around version in both scenarios. It'll save you overthinking it as well. And really the method relies upon the presentation that this card's helped with and the choreography that motivates all of the moves and justifies some of the actions that perhaps aren't particularly logical outside of this framework. And for me, that is the knack of performing this trick, is to make it just a fun, interactive, hugely enjoyable journey and trip to find their card. That way, with the more interaction you get, the easier everything flies. There is a little bit of discrepancy towards the end, but this gimmick makes that so smooth and so clean that it is imperceptible, even by the most knowledgeable of magicians. Because you only need this card, you can have this in the cellophane of your card box, ready to go at a moment's notice should anyone want you to do an impromptu card trick and you want to do something that is a bit of a miracle. You can even add it to a borrowed deck if you want, so you could just carry it in your wallet. If you do carry it in your wallet, I would recommend some form of plastic sleeve, maybe to keep it neat, but also to keep it clean. It is a really strong card trick for sure, but what I really like about it is just how much involvement there is from the audience. They get to shuffle several times, they get to do the dealing, they get to do the counting. It's good, entertaining card magic, all from one little card. Have some fun with your presentation and you've got a trick that is as much fun to perform as it is to watch. That is Destiny Deal by Craig Petty, $14.99. And finally, we have Rattle Dice by Alex Latorre. Oh, blimey, the secret hidden in this little box. This is one of those things that is completely genius. And I'll say it's genius because when you see it or when you use it, it is so simple and it seems so obvious. You just cannot think why no one has done this before. But it is incredible stuff. Here's what you get. You get these 3 die. One of these is gimmicked. They're about, I reckon, are they sort of, I don't know, 14, 16 millimeter die. I think I might have some exactly the same as this, which I'll check when I get back to the shop, just to see, because if you want some spares or you want to add extra die to your routine, I'll stick them on the website. So one of these is gimmicked, but they all look exactly the same. It's very hard to tell them apart, and that is probably the hardest part of the routine, is knowing which one is the gimmicked one throughout. And these are so versatile. You can do a multi-fade dice and cup routine, you can do a dice through table routine, you can make them vanish as they roll and hit the table. You can start off with 3 dice and vanish all of them until you've got none left. You can make the dice hop from your hand onto your participant's hand if you want to. There is just so much you can do with them. And in fact, having played with them, it seems to me that it's the sort of thing that if you've got a coin trick, you can probably try and work out some way to do it with the dice. And it's all done with just one move. The tutorial starts off with Gregory Wilson and he teaches this one move. It is basically a false transfer. It's a simple toss of the die from one hand to the other. But because it is visually deceptive and audibly deceptive, it is incredible. It is just beautiful. it just what makes this so special. It's addicted to do it. You can almost fool yourself with it. And if you've ever been scared of doing a false transfer, this will alleviate those fears completely. It removes any chance of the spectator sort of wanting to chase as well, because they're fooled audibly too, and they can continue to be fooled audibly long after the dirty work has been done. The moment of the magic and the move is so separated. It is just great and makes all of the tricks so fooling. Now, there's something about being fooled audibly that it's almost more convincing than what you're seeing. After he explains the move, Gregory runs through his multi-phase dice through cup routine, which is great. You can involve the participant, they can hold the cup. It also uses a little extra thing that you get in here as well. If you want to, you don't have to use that. His dice through table also utilizes one aspect of that particular table. It's quite common in most tables, to be honest, but if you're without it, you might need to do that routine seated rather than standing up. But otherwise, it is still just that one move, and a lot of fun. And then he then teaches something which was a real eye-opener to me, called the con man roll, which he turns into a multi-phase routine, but he basically teaches how you can force a die roll. You can do it with normal dice as well. The rattle dice just makes it that little bit more convincing, but if you're ever given 2 dice and you need to force a number on one of them, this will do it for you. It's a bit knacky. It's a lot of fun to practice and play with, though. It's not necessary to learn it for most of the routines, just this one, but it might be quite a nice little utility move to have under your belt. And throughout his section, Greg has lots of little tips and advice. Should you be worried about anything, he has got it all covered. He really does impart a lot of his knowledge and experience. The second half of the tutorial is done by Nick Lecapo, who has clearly been having too much fun with these dice as far as I can tell. And he starts off with a very nice quick routine of sort of showing 2 dice, rolling them, and then one of them vanishing. He then teaches a great little transposition of having 2 dice in your hand and one of them appearing on your participant's hand, on top of their hand. It can appear any way you like. It could be in their pocket if you put pocketing, for example. It could be on their shoulder, anywhere like that, or any location around the room, I suppose. But it's quite nice if you get your participant involved. Very easy to do. Again, it's all done with the same move and this very, very deceptive gimmick. He also teaches Alex Latorre's original routine, where you have the 3 dice, you give them a shake and a roll, and then you've only got 2 dice, you pick them up again, a shake and a roll, you've only got 1 dice, you pick them up, shake and a roll, and you've got no dice left. That's a great little routine, but you'll probably need to be seated to do it. And then Nick runs through various ideas that he's been thinking of but hasn't really developed. You can use them as chop cup routine, for example. I just encourage you to play with them and use your imagination and your creativity. I think that it's one of the most versatile, most deceptive, simple gimmicks to carry around. I absolutely love it. I would say it's got a chance of being trick of the year, but I'm pretty certain something bigger, grander and more flamboyant is going to come out and pip it. But for me, in terms of just how versatile it is, how it's just something you're going to carry around, something you're certainly going to use, something you're going to enjoy just playing with, routines you're going to come up with, ideas you're going to have, just how powerful it is as an effect. When you hear the rattle of 2 die and you roll it and there's only 1, it is really, really strong. I think it's absolutely brilliant. That is Rattle Dice by Alex Latorre, $31.99.
I wouldn't believe it if I hadn't watched it. Believe what? I don't know. I wasn't watching.
And that's it for this week, I'm afraid. I'm off to shift some fenders around the boat to stop it bashing against the bank. But I'm sure we should all find some time this weekend to grab some magic and go out there and have some fun with the best hobby in the world. Bye-bye.